Rob from Pinegrow here with another tutorial in our series on converting a set of HTML pages over to a WordPress block theme. In past videos, we have created a clean template page with just the header and footer plus a space to add our blocks. We also created a dedicated block page that is not exported in our theme. On this page, we've created 3 regular JavaScript blocks with controls. We created a top hero block, a divider block, and then a nested logo block that allows the user to decide how many individual logos to display. In this tutorial, we're going to create a new type of block, a dynamic block. This type of block allows you to update content using calls to the different WordPress functions, as well as custom PHP. Let's get started. Okay, for our dynamic block, we're going to select to output this section of the agency template. We might or might not come back to this section. Really, the only thing that's too different from our hero block within this section is just putting in a selector for the video, but that's pretty simple. So I think we're going to skip that and just go straight to this one for a dynamic block. So to start with, we're just going to make the whole section into a regular or a block. So we're going to select it on the page. We're going to go to our blocks smart actions, and we're going to add the block action, and then up here in unique ID, again, I like to prefix mine. This isn't necessary, but I think it's good practice. So we're going to say that our end user can use this to output different news items. So we're going to call this PGC news block. News block icon. Use admin generic. And then remember, we're adding this to a custom category, and we're using the category that we already registered. And again, if you wanted to, if you have a theme with a lot of blocks, you could create several of these custom category IDs in order to subcategorize your blocks. So you can have some blocks for top hero, say if you had 3 different ones to select from, and 3 different news blocks or 3 different blog blocks. All right, so we could actually leave this block type as auto when we go ahead and add our different WordPress functions into here. It'll actually sense that and auto select the type of block. But just to make sure, let's go ahead and select under block type dynamic PHP block. All right, and for right now, that's all we're going to do, I think, with this. All right, so now we have our block. Let's start adding custom controls. I'm just going to open this up so we can see what's in here. So first thing, let's just really quickly go through. These are going to be the same exact types of controls that we added in our hero block above. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so again, we're going to want to use that block attributes action. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, give this an attribute ID. Remember, within our block, the IDs have to be unique to the block, but they can overlap with previous blocks. Nonetheless, I'm going to give them kind of unique names. So news lead. We're going to leave this as content, I guess. Give this a title so that our user knows what they're going to be changing. I think we're just going to leave this as auto. I don't think we're going to want to add rich text in this area, so we can just leave it as auto. Let's move on to the next one. Add our block attribute. Something like that. Use headline. Again, I don't think we're going to, well, maybe we'll want rich text here, so we're going to change that to rich text. Again, that's going to let us do like bold and italics, things like that. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and change this paragraph. News paragraph. And let's change that to rich text as well. All right, actually, I'm going to go back to my block, my main block definition. And one of the things that we're going to want to do with this block, thinking about, is we're going to want to be able to change the background color so that it matches with other parts of our theme if we want to change this. And along with that, we're going to want to be able to change actually our text color. And I just want to show you the built-in WordPress control for this, and also where we run into some problems using Bootstrap as a framework in this sort of thing. So let's drop back to our block really quickly. And we're going to want to add, can we add a block attribute to this? Let's try. So we can. So the block attribute we're going to want to add is the news color, I guess. And then we're going to want to change our class. So right now this is getting its class or its color. So it actually doesn't have one assigned. Okay, go back to our actions. So there's no real class to replace here. We're just going to want to add or remove a class. So I think we can leave this open. We're going to test it in a second just to make sure. And then something like that, section background color. If empty, we're going to leave it as use default value. And the reason why we do that is we're right on this main section. If I say if empty, remove the element, it's going to take that whole section away, and that's not what we want. So we're going to, leave it as use default value. And then for a control type, we're going to use that select again like we did before, and I'll get the values from our background up here. I still have this list.txt file. I could also grab them from here. Actually, I will. So just going to copy those, go back to my news block, and paste that in. Let's just go make sure that that works out. So we're going to save, going to export. This just comes from some other stuff that I was doing, so you probably won't see that if you're following along. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. Did that save okay? Yes, okay. And now let's switch over to our WordPress site. It's here. Let's go ahead and make a new post. A little bit slow there. News. And we have our, apparently I said new instead of news, our news block. All right, so there is our news block with the 3 different, what are going to be news items, but we haven't done anything to make those editable yet. We can change our news lead, our news headline, and our news paragraph. So let me just go ahead and change the background color. So we can change that to primary. Now we can see, there's a couple things that we can see there actually. Let's go back to no background color at all. So one thing that we can see is that with this dynamic block, when we make changes, we get this period where it has to update. And that's because it's actually going out and querying the WordPress database or doing some stuff behind the scenes before it displays our new content out on the editor page. So that's one thing that you have to think about as far as whether you want to use plain JavaScript blocks or dynamic blocks. The editor experience is going to be different for your end user depending on which type of block you're using. Okay, so the other thing that we can see here is we have this our thoughts in the news lead here. So if we change to a primary, we now can't see that, right? Because the color of the our thoughts is blue. So remember, so we're going to have a way to change the coloring on our text to make sure that it fits how we want. All right, let's go back into Pinegrow and let's go ahead and change that or enable that. So we went ahead and added this block attribute to be able to change the background color. And we will end up having to add individual controls to these two guys, these 2 blocks of text to change their color. But there is a built-in WordPress control for changing text color. And if you look within the block definition, down at the very bottom, there's the supports. We can select text color. We could also select background color. In this case, I actually think it would work because we don't have a Bootstrap class. That's the only ones let's do font size as well. Okay, so we've added now 3 built-in WordPress controls onto this. Let's see what that gives us. So we're going to save, export the theme, go back into WordPress, reload. Okay, so now we're reloaded, select that block again. Let's change this to nothing. Okay, so now we have this typography menu down here and this color menu up here. So let's look at the color first. So remember, we said that we wanted to be able to change the text color and the background color. Let's change the background color first. So now we can select this and it's gonna quickly change that for us. Again, the reason why we can do that is because this background doesn't actually have a Bootstrap class assigned, or this section doesn't have a Bootstrap class assigned. Otherwise, we would have to use the same sort of select control that we do in our section background color to change out that class. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Let's see if we add this. Yeah, so that's going to override any class that we're going to add from Bootstrap is going to override the colors that are added through WordPress. All right, so now let's look at changing the text color. Let's change this back to white, or actually just clear it. Let's change the text color now. So go with that green. So again, here it's the same exact problem, or the same exact situation as with the background color. So this, our thoughts, this lead, and this headline both have colors set using Bootstrap classes. So the built-in WordPress controls are not going to override that. And instead, we're going to have to put in select menus for each of these to be able to change the text color. On the other hand, the paragraphs in each of these areas of the section, they don't have Bootstrap styling. They take their color from the parent element. And here we're changing the color on the parent element, which is cascading down to these paragraph elements. So we can elect to leave that on there. And clear that out so it goes back to just plain black. All right, so the other menu that we now have, in addition to the color, is the typography menu. We're going to have the same situation. So we're going to turn on font size. So right now it's size default. We can make that large. And what you can see is, again, it's only impacting the paragraphs, not the lead, not the headline. And again, that's because there's Bootstrap classes on there. And so they are not inheriting their size from the parent. Okay, so let's just put that back to, how do we reset that? I'm not sure how we reset that. We're just going to put it at 20, I guess, for right now. Reset all. There we go. All right, so let's go back into Pinegrow and add a few more controls. All right, so let's add the colors for these really quickly. So we're going to add an attribute. So we've been able to change the content already. Close that down, add attribute. So lead color. I'm going to use this as a class because remember we're changing the Bootstrap class on this. In this case, we are going to change out a class. So the color is being added through this text-primary. So we're going to do that. Lead color. Going to open our list back up. Okay, so you can see that the color is being added by this text dash and then the color. Here we've got BG. So within our Monaco code editor here in Pinegrow, we're just going to select the BG, hotkey for find, and drop this down. And we're going to replace that out with text. And then click the replace all. Now we can go ahead and, whoops, copy this and paste it into our values. All right, and then if empty, use the default value, which is going to be text primary. So that one's done. Now we're going to do the same thing for this one. Add attribute, attribute ID, headline color, use this class. This time we're replacing the text dark. Control type, select. That should be still, yep, selected. So now we've got the control for that. This one, we have control on it from the block, the parent block. Okay, let's do the button now. So for the button, we're going to want to be able to control the text of the button link, and the button color. So we're going to have 3 attributes to put on that. So click on block attributes. Let's go ahead and add the first one, the link. Button link, uses link. And then for right now, we don't have to do anything else. That should be fine right there. Add an attribute. This time we're going to change the, I guess, the button text. Button text. This is again going to, whoops, no. This is going to be content. And then if empty, use default value, control type auto. That should all be fine. And then the final one. So this should look all very familiar from the past videos. So for this one, class. In this case, the color is being added by this button dash primary. So that's the one that we're going to select to replace. And we're going to change this to a toggle. Select. And then we have to go back and we have to change this to the opposite. Text. Oh, sorry, not the opposite. To button. Replace all. Copy it. Paste it. Okay, so that makes all of these now controllable and changeable. I guess we can check that out really quickly. Jump back over into WordPress, reload. So if we select that, so we still have our colors there. We have the section background, the news lead text, the lead color, the headline color. I guess we should make sure those work, eh? Secondary, they do. And again, you can see that it takes a little bit for it to update because it's a dynamic block. Headline color, danger. Okay, and okay, so everything's nice and colorful. All right, and then we should test our button really quickly. Button link. It looks like we're going to be able to change that just fine. Maybe people haven't fooled around enough with Gutenberg yet. You notice that there was an extra drop-down menu here. If you have posts already, or pages, or other media items, you can actually select, and if you say this is going to link out to a post, if you have posts, I don't have posts right now in this, it would give you a list of all of your posts that you can directly link to within your pages. So you can either go ahead and type a link in, or you can select a post, things like that. All right, close that down. We have our button text, learn less, and our button color. Okay, so all of that's working. So now what we want to do is, so far, everything we've done could have been done in a normal, regular JavaScript block. But now these last three, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to register a custom post type, news, and then I'm going to make it so that so that when this block comes up, it loads the latest 3 news items and replaces the little blocks that are there right now. Okay, let's jump back into Pinegrow. Go ahead and jump down to that. So one thing that we have to think about right now is the organization of our page. So one thing that it would be possible with a lot of gymnastics to do is to go ahead and make this a nested block like we did earlier with the logos, so that the end user could select the number of news items to enter in here, but that makes our query loop really difficult. And so for this purpose, I'm just going to show a simple one where this block always has 3 different news items. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this or convert these 3 blocks over to displaying those news items. And so for each one, what I'm going to want to do is, or for the first one, what I'm going to want to do is go ahead and add actual WordPress actions or non-Gutenberg actions to this block. So for the image, let's go ahead and close this down and open up our post smart actions. So for this one, I'm going to want the either the post, I guess the post featured image. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to say I want it as the post thumbnail. So when we bring our custom post in, it will replace this SVG image out with the post featured image. Then I'm for the top lead here, I guess I'll use the post title. For the paragraph, I'm going to use a post excerpt. And for this one, I'm going to use the post link. Okay, so now we have each of those set up. So now what we're going to want to do is set up our actual query loop. So if you look, right now each of these blocks are set up as a column. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add our loop here to this row. So we're going to do that just by adding a show posts. And we're going to make this a custom loop. not the main loop. And then the post type, we can add our new post, and then we're going to register that. And then that brings up two other post type option for our names, both plural and singular. So news item. All right. So now we have those. This is going to, by default, name this query news_query, so we don't have to fill that in. I want to do the latest, so I'm going to create a date down, and I'm going to bring in just 3. So that's going to replace these 3 here, and I'm going to choose not to paginate the results. Okay, and now we have our items container, which is just going to be this row that we have right here, and the repeated loop item is actually going to be our columns. So I'm going to select that one. So now this one's going to be the repeater. And so what we have to do is just show that these two are just placeholders for our design. So export. And these are just item placeholders. So these two are not going to get exported. It's only going to be this one. And then the loop is actually going to run through 3 posts and basically duplicate this in order to fill that in. So let's see if that's going to work. So we're going to save that. We're going to, export our theme. And now we're going to jump over into WordPress. So I've run through this previously. And so I already registered the custom post type. And so I think by redoing this now, I think all of those custom posts will be remembered. So I populated that. And we're going to check that, but let's do a reload first and see what happens. So we do a reload. Okay, and you can see, yep, we've got 3 different posts here. Let's go see where those are from. So this is saved. So we can go back to our dashboard. And we can see now that here on the left side in our dashboard, we have our custom post type news. So if we look inside there, we can see I've already populated this with 6 different news items. So the loop, when it runs, is pulling in these 3, the latest 3, because of the way I classified it, or the way I ordered it. All right, so let's go back into our posts, go back into our draft. Okay, so now at this point, I guess what we could do is this is going to be brought in from our posts. In my posts, I don't have any images. So these are actually just, since there is no image, it's actually using the SVG that was there in the very first column. It's bringing in the title of the post and the excerpt. Actually, I don't have an excerpt set, but the way that the way I set up the action, or I didn't select to not display it if the excerpt wasn't set. All right, so we had a little bit of a computer problem, but I've gone ahead and fixed that. I've rearranged a little bit, so things might look slightly different from the first part of this video, but we can continue on. So we had just finished up with looking at how these different news items were brought onto the page in our last little segment there. And now what I wanted to do was just do a final few tweaks to this page. So we have basically we can basically edit the colors of our lead, our title, our paragraphs here. The only other thing that I think that would be good to do, there we go. It was just throwing me a little bit because I didn't have that size properly for the screen. So the only other thing that I think that we should do here is if we go ahead and change the background color of this block. So if we change it to a primary, we're going to need to be able to change the color of the buttons down here. And it would also be nice if the end user was able to actually change the color of the news items. So we're going to go back and we're going to do that. We're going to put in those block controls and then we'll call it good. All right, so down here, like I said, the 2 things that we're going to want to do is be able to change this block color and be able to change the link color. So to change the link color, we're just going to highlight that link and then go ahead and add a smart action. So I'm going to open up the block smart actions. Let's bring this up. click on the block attributes. In this case, let's link color. Post on color, there we go. We're going to change this to a class. Again, this is going to be set by class in Bootstrap. So right now it's got a class of link-primary that gives it this color. So go back in here. So the class that we're going to want to target is that link-primary. The other class that's got it on it is a text-decoration-none. This is going to take away the underlining from that link. And then we're going to give this a title, link color, post link color, fine. If empty, use the default value. Again, if we were to say remove the element, it would completely get rid of that link. We don't want that. And then for control type, we're going to go once again with our select and grab those values. So I'm going to open up my list in the code editor. Again, the color here is being added with this link prefix. So we're going to highlight the BG for background, do a find, and then a replace with link. Replace all. Go ahead and copy it all and paste it into our values box. All right, so now we'll be able to change the link color if we change the background color of the whole block or of the individual news items. So let's go ahead and add that last control so that we can change the news item background. So, excuse me. So one of the sort of caveats that we have here is right now we're running a single loop that you can see here that brings in all three of these news items. So that single loop that's on the row is going to bring in all three of these. And so the second two actually aren't exported. What that means is that any block attributes that we change on this first item, because it's essentially replicated to make those other two news items, it's that same class is going to be applied to the other two items on the page. So if we change the color of this one, the color of these two are also going to change. That's just not something we can control. We could think about adding, I suppose, the color onto this row instead of onto the column. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. So let's just go ahead and add it to this column. We're going to add a block attribute. And it's already filled out for me because I did this already as a test. So I gave it an attribute ID of news underscore item underscore color. Again, we're changing the class. The class is being derived from a Bootstrap class on the background. So if you actually look at this, it doesn't have any type of color class here. So this actually can go away. We can just delete that. So in this case, we're not technically replacing a class. We're either adding it or removing it. We've got a title here so the end user knows what they're changing. If empty, again, use default value, select, and then we've got our list of values, this time using that background as the BG as the prefix to tell what color we want to change. Okay, so I think this is all good. We're going to save this, and we're going to export that, jump back over into WordPress, and go ahead and reload this page. Okay, so now we can already see that things have changed. If we highlight this block, let's get rid of this section background color. And now we have all of our controls for these up here. But in addition, down here, we have two new controls. The news item background, right now it's set to success for whatever reason. We could set it to primary. We could set it to none. And you can see it's changing on all three. And then we also have the post link color. So we can change that to whatever we feel like. And obviously, these aren't colors that we would normally choose, but it's very instructive. All right, so I think that is it for this tutorial. We've really made this entire block very customizable. About the only other thing that I think that we could do if we wanted to is we could make it so we could put in additional blocks of 3 news items. But you can get a pretty good idea now about how dynamic blocks work and what they can do for us. So in the next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and export another template page. So this one, again, has been great as some sort of landing page, although those blocks can be used on multiple pages, but the template we did so far is more of a landing page. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to output a template for displaying our single blog content as well as our blog archive. And so until the next time, have fun designing with Pinegrow.